It's 7 o'clock. This is a special programme live from New York, where Donald Trump will appear later, facing a litany of charges relating to hush money paid to an adult film star during his race for the White House. The former president, the first in US history to face criminal prosecution, left his Florida resort a little over 2 hours ago to crowds of supporters. Boarding his trademark Trump Force One plane and bound for New York, where we expect him to land shortly before 9 p.m. As he took off, he shared a message on his own social media platform, condemning the indictment he faces as a witch hunt. We'll be live throughout the evening. Good evening. Donald Trump has left his Florida bolt hole, Mar-a-Lago, bound for New York, where tomorrow he will learn what criminal charges he faces. The former president has become the first in US history to face criminal prosecution. The charges relate to allegations made over hush money that was paid to a porn star during his successful bid for the White House in 2016. Mr. Trump's motorcade left his Mar-a-Lago resort at around 20 past midday local time, headed for West Palm Beach Airport in Florida. Along the route, crowds of supporters greeted the former president, waving banners and flags. Shortly after 1 p.m. local time, Donald Trump departed for LaGuardia Airport in New York on his trademark Trump-branded Boeing 757, dubbed Trump Force One. As he did so, he posted on his own media platform, Truth Social, "Witch hunt," he said, "as our once great country is going to hell." This is what will happen over the next few hours and days. President Trump's arraignment, the point at which he's told the charges he faces, will take place in a New York court on Tuesday. The following day, he's flying back to Florida, where he's confirmed he will hold a news conference at 1:15 a.m. UK time. And throughout the day tomorrow, we'll be reacting to those charges here on Sky News. My colleague Mark Stone is on Fifth Avenue beneath Trump Tower. Over to you, Mark.
James, thank you very much. What an extraordinary spectacle this is. I'll step out of the way and you can, I hope, get a flavour of what we are seeing here on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 56th Street here in Manhattan. A sea of media from around the world, led from their front seats by the US media, by the US TV networks, who, with their own interpretation of this extraordinary moment in US history, will be broadcasting 24/7 for what I imagine will be a couple of days at least. And over on the other side, well, you're looking up there, first of all, at the top of Trump Tower. That is where Donald Trump will be arriving in around an hour or so's time. His penthouse apartment, 3 floors in itself at the top of Trump Tower. And greeting him over on the other side of the road there will be supporters of his. They said that this would be a homecoming, that they would be gathering to welcome him home. Of course, New York City is his home, but his base is from far and wide across this country. And I have to say, looking at that number here, it doesn't look to be all that great. The supporters are certainly outnumbered by the number of media that there are here, and indeed by punters trying to get past. Have a look here on Fifth Avenue. The street has been narrowed because the barricades have been put up for the media on one side, for his supporters on the other side. And so people trying to get about their business, squeezed between these shops and the road itself. As you say, Donald Trump will arrive here in a short while time. He will land at LaGuardia's airport, which is just the other side of the river here from Manhattan. There's some speculation as to whether he will drive from LaGuardia to Manhattan or whether he will helicopter over and then drive the short distance from one of the helipads here to Trump Tower, where he will spend the night, this night in his gilded cage, you might say, up at the top there, before he appears in the dock tomorrow for this extraordinary moment in American political history.
Mark Stone on Fifth Avenue, many thanks. Julie Randleman is with us. She's a New York criminal defense attorney specializing in state and federal crimes and investigations. Julie, many thanks for being with us. Let me ask you, the final detail is still being worked out between the DA's office and Donald Trump's lawyers. But talk to us about normal procedure in the Manhattan District Courthouse and the process going forward.
I mean, what we expect, obviously there's an indictment that came down, but we haven't seen the specific charges yet. It's what we call an X indictment or a silent indictment. And so we're not going to learn the actual charges until court tomorrow. The first thing that usually would happen, and I expect to happen with Donald Trump, is he would come early in the morning with his attorneys. He would go to the district attorney's office where he would be fingerprinted and a picture would be taken of him. Those fingerprints are sent to Albany, New York, for the purpose of getting what we commonly call a rap sheet to determine if he has any open cases, warrants. We do that with every single defendant that is arrested. That usually takes a couple of hours. Once that's done, he will be brought into court and he will be arraigned, meaning that the indictment will be unsealed. He will be provided a copy of it to review with his attorneys. He will plead not guilty. Now, I know a lot of people are asking the question, will he be cuffed? Will he not be cuffed? There is no mandate for any individual to be cuffed. Some people think he'd want to be cuffed. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. But there's no mandate that he be cuffed, and I don't believe that the district attorney's office would require that in a case of this nature.
Okay, should I give her a call? Or
Julie, we can't assess the strength of this case until we know the full detail of the charges he faces. As you say, that will only come tomorrow. But we think it's about a falsification of records. We think there may be a campaign finance violation. On the basis of what we think we know so far, how would you assess the strength of that case?
So, yeah, and unfortunately, there has been a lot of thinking. We all keep saying this guessing game because we don't know the specific charges. And we assume that most of the charges are misdemeanors and potentially some felonies. I would assume there would be if they went into the grand jury and sought an indictment and came back with a true bill. And so the question is the strength of the case. And a case is only as strong as the witnesses that you have and the corroborating evidence. And the witness, the main witness in this case, we all know is Michael Cohen, or we believe it's Michael Cohen. And the problem for the prosecutor in this case is that Michael Cohen is a convicted felon himself, and he's been convicted of not telling the truth in the past. And that's a big hurdle when it comes to the prosecution going forward with this case. And so the question becomes, do they have corroborating evidence? Is it just Michael Cohen? Or is there going to be other evidence, whether it be paperwork, emails, audios, other witnesses that support what he's saying to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump is guilty of some or all of these charges?
There's much talk, Julie, about this being a political prosecution. Donald Trump indeed calls it political persecution, led by a Democrat, a man who was elected into the position, the DA, Alvin Bragg. I wonder, as a career lawyer, what's your take on that, the accusation that this is all about politics?
So, it's hard for me to assess. I'm not in the mind of Alvin Bragg. And so I can't tell you why it's happening or why it's happening now. I can tell you the talk, and the talk is coming from both sides. There's some sides that's, some certainly in the more Democratic field that say it's about time. This will get other jurisdictions to go forward with the criminal cases that are potentially coming forward as well. But there are some, again, from both sides who are wondering why this case and why now? Obviously, there's another election coming up, and there's talk as to whether or not the district attorney was motivated by that political process to go forward. Now, again, when an individual commits a crime, whether they're the president of the United States or not, or the former president of the United States, justice is supposed to be served, and the district attorney's job is to go forward. But there's questions questions about jurisdiction in regards to this case. There's questions about the statute of limitations. And again, there's questions about the credibility of the witnesses. And so all of these things lead different individuals to have some questions as to why it's going forward at this time.
Julie, many thanks for your expertise. We're also joined by Michael Wolff, the author of the book Fire and Fury, an expose of President Trump's White House. Mr. Wolff, many thanks for being with us. It's probably good news, isn't it, for Donald Trump when he arrives here to be booked, because he won't be in handcuffs.
You know, I mean, this is from the Mar-a-Lago point of view. This is an extraordinary time, and in fact, a time in which they cannot be more thrilled about this. I'm being told that the former president's mood is triumphant at this point. They tell me that there is really one metric they are focused on, and the metric is that the more media attention the former president gets, the more his poll numbers go up. So we're in this a kind of very weird moment in which you have one half of everyone who's looking at this saying the former president is in enormous trouble. He is headed for court. He may be headed for jail. And on the other side, you have many of his supporters, of the people who are running his campaign, saying this has restored his political prospects. He is back on top because of this.
Yeah, how would you call it, Michael? Trouble or triumph?
Let me go back to what they're saying at Mar-a-Lago. They are saying short term, this is only good news. Long term, it's uncertain. But in the world of Donald Trump, long term doesn't matter because everything is short term. Everything is the next crisis, which produces more attention on Donald Trump, which produces higher polls.
Yeah, Michael, you've seen him close up in the White House. Talk to me about how he's handling this indictment. Talk to me about he may handle further indictments, because there are 3 others potentially more serious in the pipeline. How does he handle that? How does he gain traction?
Yes,
because that's a lot of criminal baggage to carry.
Totally. And in addition to the 3 other criminal indictments that he may be facing, he has several very significant civil cases against him, including a case of sexual harassment by the writer E. Jean Carroll, which will begin in a couple of weeks also. So never before has it is not just never before has a former president been indicted, but never before has a president or former president or politician of any kind of stature faced so many legal charges against him, legal crises facing him. Having said that, I can tell you what he did this weekend. Did he worry? Well, if he was worried, he was worried on the golf course. So he is taking this very much in stride, in fact, pleased with what is going on. He's back feeling he is in his element, and with his element being all cameras on him at all times.
Yeah, his fundraising is up more than $5 million and counting on the back of news of the indictment. His poll numbers are up, certainly in the Republican race, ahead of Ron DeSantis. Why is that, Michael? Why does he have that constituency that follow on behind events and circumstances like this?
You know, if I could answer that, we would unlock the mystery of Donald Trump. I think it just goes to the fact that he is fundamentally a performer. He is fundamentally, it may be, I've often thought that it is so clear when the camera is on him that he is having a good time that somehow it becomes infectious. Again, it really doesn't matter the quality of the attention, good or bad, just the attention itself. People seem, or at least half of the country seems to take some incredible enjoyment out of Donald Trump's performance, whether that is because they see him as striking a blow for them, which he would maintain, or whether they see him this somehow as just an ongoing extension of his 14 years on one of the highest rated television shows in the country. I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, he's on his way to New York, and indeed Trump's plane has just entered North Carolina airspace. He is on his way to Manhattan, to Trump Tower, and thereafter tomorrow morning to the Manhattan District Courthouse. Let me ask you, Michael, he has designs on a return to the White House. He was president once. He wants to be president again. Although he's had this bounce among the core support, what does it do, all this, to his political ambitions in the long run with independent voters, swing voters, those that he needs to pull back in if he's to succeed?
Well, I think in a normal political calculation, he doesn't really care about swing voters at this point. He cares about Republican voters in the Republican primary. And even more specifically, I think he cares about what this does to his prospects against the prospects of Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, and his chief opponent in the coming presidential primary. Although DeSantis has not yet declared, that, of course, is the assumption that he will shortly declare.
What can we expect, Michael, in terms of strategy from Donald Trump moving forward, do you think?
Well, I think strategy is a word that I'm not sure I would put in the same sentence with Donald Trump. From Donald Trump, it's largely impulse. It's largely the moment at hand in how he reacts to it. Often his closest aides are dumbfounded by how he reacts. When 2 weeks ago he declared that he was going to be indicted on Tuesday, that would have been 2 weeks ago Tuesday, and obviously that didn't happen. That was news to everyone on his staff. He merely sent that out on Truth Social, his social media network, from the golf course. Whether he had been planning that or whether it was spur of the moment, nobody knows. I would vote for probably spur of the moment. So again, it is all for Trump a matter of playing it as it lays. Who's in front of him? What's the mood that he's sensing? He is a first, last, and always a performer. And like any good performer, it is all about holding the attention of the audience at a given moment.
Michael Wolff, journalist and author, many thanks for being with us and for your contribution. Let's go back to Julie Randleman, a New York criminal defense attorney. Julie, I wonder if I can ask you, Donald Trump has been withering in his criticism of the DA who's prosecuting or leading this case. He's also been critical of the judge involved, posting that the judge hates him. I wonder, and you're a career lawyer, how will that go down in a New York courtroom?
So the question a lot of people are asking is whether or not the judge will impose a gag order on Donald Trump or on both sides. And it's very possible that they will. They imposed it with regards to Harvey Weinstein after one of the defense attorneys spoke out, almost directly speaking to the jury in an op-ed piece. And so they could ask for a gag order. The problem is what is that gag order going to be? It's going to have to be quite narrow because people have a First Amendment right of free speech. And this is an individual that is running for president. And so he believes and his team believes that this is a political witch hunt. And so he should be able to speak about it. And so the judge is really going to have to do a balancing act in terms of what that gag order is going to look like. By the way, if there is a gag order, there's no question that his attorneys are going to appeal it. They're going to go either to an Article 78, like try to appeal it through the state court, or try to do it through the federal court. So there's going to be a lot of appellate wrangling going on in this case.
And Julie, much talk about other indictments possibly in the pipeline. Much talk about this being the weakest of potentially 4 prosecutions. How do you see that?
Well, look, we talk about the potential for him going to jail. And again, this is a guessing game, but we assume if it is what we think it is, that it's a Class E felony, which is the lowest possible felony. There's no mandatory jail time. And with an individual that's never been in trouble at his age, even if he were to be convicted, it's very possible he would see no jail. Some believe that this case is going to push other states forward, other investigations forward, open the floodgates for them to come forward. And if their cases are stronger, then this case will almost disappear and the other cases will take more precedent.
Julie Randleman, many thanks for joining us and for your expertise. Just a bit of breaking news. A senior advisor to Donald Trump, Jason Miller, has tweeted from the Donald Trump flight saying that over $7 million has been raised for the Trump campaign since Thursday night. So Donald Trump doing well on the back of news of his indictment, in cash terms at least. We'll be here